We're holding Helek Gimel Perek Shishi, Sefer Derech Hashem. For those of you who were not here from the very beginning, Sefer Derech Hashem is a very interesting book. It covers quite a few concepts in Judaism that are not simple. What I mean by simple is that we're not dealing with the mitzvot, with the commandments, which are not simple either, but at least they are fulfilled during our lifetime, so we have a little bit of an understanding of what they do and what they're for. This book contains a lot more deeper concepts, more philosophy, ideas that deal with the creation of the world. In the very beginning of the book, spoke a little bit about the purpose of creation, that there are different forces out there. We spoke about Koach HaKdusha and Koach HaTum'ah, the impure, the pure forces. We spoke about the human being, what his mission is, the human being, how he's different than the rest of creation, that he has free will, difference between the Jewish people and the non-Jewish world. Very important concepts, important for every Jew to know, to be familiar with them. Some of them are more difficult to comprehend, some of them border on the Kabbalah, but this book is not too deep, and it's a good idea to go through these concepts because they are the basics. The basics, even though they deal with issues that are much more difficult than the average. Alright, so now we're holding with the chapter that deals with something called Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah. Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah is very interesting. People are unfamiliar with it. They heard that there's something called prophets. Well, where are they today? Even though many non-Jews claim to be prophets, claim to be seers, claim to know the future, as you will see, they're not prophets in the real sense of the word. Now that we have a better understanding of why Hashem made the world, that He's in charge, that He oversees everything, that there's divine providence, we will see something that is related to it, and that's called divine inspiration. Not only did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the world, not only does He manage it, not only is there a purpose for everything, there's a lot going on at every single moment that basically speaks out or says that Hashem is with us, that He's around. If we look at creation, the creation itself, obviously it's wondrous, it's full of wonders, full of details, and for those of us who have emunah, it's no big deal to understand and to believe that this was created and was designed for a purpose. But that was already done with. Even though man is continuously being created, and our tradition says that in every human being there are three partners, man, the woman, and Borei Olam. So there is continuous creation too. People take these things for granted. That is why people are not always impressed by what they see, even though all you need to do is get on top of a plane, and after 15 hours you're in Israel, across the world. What happened? 100 years ago, that was not possible. So you see the intelligence, you see all the wonders in the world, you look at your own body, so you can see the greatness of Borei Olam. But there's something else out there, there's quite a bit more, and it's called Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, through which one can also see not only the greatness of Hashem, not only that Hashem exists, but something which is not easily observable. In other words, it's something which you have to look for a little bit more, especially nowadays in the 21st century. So that's what we're going to be speaking about right now. What is Ruach HaKodesh and what is Nevuah? He begins as follows. He begins to explain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it into the human being's nature, the ability to analyze, to use his brain to analyze the situation, and by a simple analysis, he will be able to understand some things. By a deeper analysis, he will be able to understand that which is not easily observable. In other words, takes a deeper look at something, whether using a microscope, whether he thinks about it, and he might know more than what he knows initially. Initially, we look at something, we read it, or we look at it, and we understand a little bit, in a limited fashion. We take a deeper look, we analyze it further, and think about it, we might be able to understand more. Then there's one higher level than that. After all the analysis is complete, HaKadosh Baruch Hu also made it possible that the human being should be able to comprehend something in its entirety, the complete essence of something, the completeness of something, that there's no ambiguity, there's no doubt about it. That is the Ruach HaKodesh. And with Ruach HaKodesh, which means divine inspiration, one is able to see clearly, without any doubts, what something is all about. Because we may have doubts, we may not be sure about something. We see something, we analyze it, we think we know what it is. With Ruach HaKodesh, which Hashem made it possible, one is able to see a lot more, with much more clarity than he would otherwise be by his plain intelligence. That is Ruach HaKodesh. When we talk about Ruach HaKodesh, we also mean that but one is able to see the future too. Not only is he able to see something with clarity, he may be able to see further down the road. And there were great tzaddikim who, even till today, people would come to them. They would be able to tell them all their sins. You committed this and this last night. How does he know this? He's not a prophet. He has something called Ruach HaKodesh. You want another example of Ruach HaKodesh? It has nothing to do with sins. Many of you may have heard of Baba Meir, Abu Katsira, son of Baba Salim, the father of the day of Elazar, of David. So in Israel, one of the police chiefs in the south, his son was kidnapped by the Olam HaPesha, by the criminals. So this police chief apparently must have been separated. He had someone not tzaddikim. So he ran to Baba Meir. First, I think, went to Baba Salim. Baba Salim said, you know what? For something like this, go to my son. He specializes in these kind of things. Baba Meir, who used to live in Ashdod, listened to what police were trying to say. Son was kidnapped. What should he do? He doesn't know where he is. How should he get hold of him? So Rabbi Meir took out a piece of paper and a pen. He was never in London. Nevertheless, he drew a picture of streets in London, and drew a few streets, and drew a building on one of the corners. He says, on the intersection of these two streets, there's a building that has so many stories. He's on the 3rd floor. They went, and they searched for him, and they found him there. How does he know? He never learned geography. He maybe, at least, he wasn't an expert in geography. He was never in London. Where did all this information come from? That's called the Ruach HaKodesh. Rabbis tell us that the tzaddikim and mu'atim, that the righteous people who are on the level of Ruach HaKodesh are very few. Shaklam otam b'chol dor vador. He therefore planted them. He put them in every single generation. So we should have who to turn to. Whenever we need access to this kind of information, where are you going to get this kind of information? What are you going to do? Obviously, it's very helpful over here. This is called Ruach HaKodesh. Not only to see with clarity something, not only to have a better understanding of something, but to also be able to see the future. And to see that which is hidden, like we just said, sins. Sins are hidden. Nobody knows the sins of his friend. It's called nistarot. Very nistarim. So he who has Ruach HaKodesh, depending on his level of Ruach HaKodesh, is able to see that. He goes on to explain that there are various levels of Ruach HaKodesh. Not everybody's on the same level. And it all depends on the time. Not all the times are the same. And there are various ways to attain the Ruach HaKodesh. Rabbis tell us, they actually mentioned in the Sefer Tanat Eliyahu. There's a beautiful Sefer called Tanat Eliyahu that our tradition says it was dictated by Eliyahu Navi. Dictated, in other words, he said it, and it was written down by the rabbi who wrote it down. And in that Sefer he says as follows: Nishba ani, I make an oath, sheben ish ben isha, ben eved ben shipha, ben goy ben yehudi, akol lefi ma'asav ruach hakodesh ha'ala. I swear, he says, whether it's a man or a woman, a free man or a slave, a Jew or a non-Jew, it makes no difference who that individual is. If he's any kind of human being, depending on his deeds, he can attain Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is different than Nebuah. We'll talk about that next. But anybody can attain Ruach HaKodesh even today. It is possible. And what does it depend? On one's ma'aseh. Purely one's ma'aseh. Purely one's deeds. I don't remember if he gets into this later on, but there's something called Gilui Eliyahu. You may have heard it. That some people have the zechut that Eliyahu Navi comes and speaks to them. Just like two friends. You may have heard of Rabbi Sharabi, not the one who passed away recently, first one. He had Gilui Eliyahu. There were many tzaddikim, Baruch Hashem, who had the zechut to have Eliyahu Navi come see them, learn with them. And yeah, physically, I'm going to explain the various levels of how he appeared. Anyway, so there were many who had the zechut that he actually embodied physically. He appeared to them just like another rabbi, another tzaddik, another Jew. So once this rabbi was sitting down with Eliyahu Navi, and this rabbi had a servant, a maid servant, and she used to bring him tea. One day she brings him 2 cups of tea. Why are you bringing me 2 glasses of tea? This is for you and for your guest. If you have the zechut of seeing my guest, I'm going to marry you. You're going to be my wife. Just because he was able to see doesn't mean that somebody else would see. And nobody else would usually be able to see. He has the zechut. He was able to see. He was able to hear. Not everybody else. You were able to see. You could be my wife. They got married. So not everybody has the zechut. It's a big zechut to see Eliyahu Navi. Rabbis tell us you did not see him in person. The next possibility is to see him in a dream. That's also big zechut. The one is able to see Eliyahu Navi at least There's difference with like what you were asking, person or not. It all depends on the level of the individual. There are various levels on how one can be zochet to something called Gilui Eliyahu. Anyway, there are various forms of Giluyim, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Giluyim meaning revelations. So far we've covered Ruach HaKodesh, which is a divine inspiration, and it's a divine inspiration that can be constant at all times. Person is zocheh, he can have that better understanding, more clarity, and perhaps on a higher level also be able to see the futures and to see things that are hidden from most people. There's something which is a little bit less than Ruach HaKodesh, but people call it Ruach HaKodesh, and that is, he calls it here, a shefa shebalev, that the heart is inspired. What does it mean the heart is inspired? That all of a sudden a person gets this thought from nowhere. He doesn't know where it came from. A thought, an idea. And as a result of that thought or idea, he's going to do something. He's going to be careful, he's going to do something, or he had a big question on a Gemara, for example, and all of a sudden he got the answer. Even though they call it Ruach HaKodesh, that is not exactly Ruach HaKodesh, but it's also a shefa. It's also an inspiration coming from above on a lower level. Okay, so all of this is called Ruach HaKodesh. The only difference between Ruach HaKodesh and this thought is that when somebody has Ruach HaKodesh, he's actually able to sense it. He's actually able to feel something, that he's receiving this inspiration from above, as opposed to just having a thought coming from nowhere. Okay, next, Nevuah. This is Ruach HaKodesh. What is prophecy? The big difference between prophecy and Ruach HaKodesh is that prophecy is a complete vikut leborei olam. One is completely attaching himself to the makor, to borei olam. It's a higher level than Ruach HaKodesh. Except that prophecy does not come at all times. So on the one hand, Ruach HaKodesh you can have all the time, but it's at a lower level. Prophecy you only have at certain times when Hashem wants you to have this prophecy, especially if it's a prophecy that one needs to go on a mission. And we had prophets, they were on a mission. It wasn't meant for them to keep the prophecies for themselves, they had to share it with others. So not only were they on a mission, they were on a very, very high level. It's a higher level than Ruach HaKodesh. This level means iddapkut, means that one is attaching himself to Borei Olam, and at that point, one has no doubts whatsoever what he is seeing, or what he's feeling, what he's experiencing. It's much more clear. If we said Ruach HaKodesh was clear, well, this one is even more powerful. It's so powerful that the Rambam says so, and everybody says so, that any time a Jew received prophecy while he was awake, he had to lie down on the floor, go to sleep. It was so powerful, the inspiration coming down, and it's so spiritual, prophecy spiritual, that all the physical senses could not handle it, could not tolerate it. So they had to calm down. And how would they calm down? By falling on the floor, by going to sleep. I don't want to call it a seizure, but it may appear to somebody who did not understand what was happening here, all of a sudden kind of in the middle of the street, he was just falling down, because he was receiving a nevuah from above. Because the physical senses had to be neutralized. That is how powerful the nevuah was. Even though we said that nevuah needs to be attached to Borei Olam, nevertheless the prophecy comes through shlichim. One is not actually speaking to Borei Olam, he's speaking through messengers. As you know, a prophecy usually comes in the form of a dream. In other words, he's asleep, or he's half asleep, and he's seeing something in the dream. And if you read the prophets, the various books that we have, you will see also various leshonot, various terms describing what the prophet is. You will see the word Hazon Yeshayahu, for example. You will see the word Hazon. There are various other terms used to describe prophecy, because even prophecy, just like Ruach HaKodesh, would also occur on various levels, depending on the level of the Navi, depending on what Hashem would want them to see. And even they would not, even though everything is clear to them, all that is clear is that they're seeing prophecy. What they're seeing may not be completely clear. If you read the book of Daniel, for example, Daniel says, I didn't understand what I was seeing. It was an enigma, it was a puzzle to me. What is this? He needed the malach to explain to him what he saw. He saw a big rock rolling down the mountain. What is this supposed to be? He saw statues, but the feet were of clay, partly, or the toes were of metal, different types of metals and different types of materials. What does all that mean? It's like a dream. When you see a dream, if it's a real dream, not that most dreams are not real, but the dreams that are real are not necessarily clear. You don't see clearly what is going to happen. Unless the person is on such a high level that they give him more clarity. Otherwise, he has to figure it out. And that is why people historically, throughout the ages, would go to somebody called the Poter Chalamot, somebody that knows how to interpret a dream, so that they should be able to tell him. And his job was not easy. He had to separate the kash from the tevet, the straw from the hay. Because most dreams, even the real dreams, are a mixture of kash and tevet. You have to be able to filter out. This is shkuyot. This is not part of the dream. This has no significance whatsoever. And to be able to just pick out the one detail that's important. The same thing with Nevuah. Depending on the level of the Navi, even though it was clear to him what he was experiencing, the picture that he was seeing was not necessarily clear. He would have to try to figure it out. So all of this would be done through shalichim, through messengers, through malachim. Okay, I think maybe we should go to the Rambam for a moment, just to see what are the conditions. Next week, or Hashem, the next 2 weeks, or depending on if we're able to finish the next week, we'll talk about the difference between all the Nevi'im and what Moshe Rabbeinu. It's a big difference. And part of the Yesodot of our Emunah, part of the principles of our faith, is to believe in prophecy and to believe in the truthfulness of the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu stood out in a very important way, but we'll talk about that more next week, on what he was able to see, to know all the prophets and the clarity what Moshe Rabbeinu saw. Anyways, the Rambam says as follows, that it's one of the fundamentals of our faith to know that Hashem gives prophecy to human beings, but prophecy does not go to everybody. Who gets prophecy? An individual who is a Chacham Gadol, an intelligent man, the Chokhmah, Gibor b'midotav, that he's strong in his character. What that means is that he controls himself, he's disciplined. V'lo yeh yitzro mitgaber avlav, the yetzer, he does not control him. Shum davar ba'olam, ela hu mitgaber b'da'ato, he is always in control. Al yitzro tamid. Ubal de'ah rechava, nechonah mu'od, they're intelligent, open-minded. Adam shu memule b'chol hamidot ha'elo, one who has all the good characteristics, good-natured, shalem b'gufo, he's physically healthy. And he goes on to explain how the Navi would train himself after having all of these characteristics to prepare himself for Nevuah. Then he explains that the prophets have various ma'alot, various levels, as we said before. Some are greater, some are not as high level. And they all see the prophecy in a form of dream at night. And if it's during the day, they would have to fall down so they can concentrate on the nevuah that is coming to them. Then he says that some nevuot are for the Nabi himself, for the prophet himself, and some prophecies are for others, for future generations. We have a rule, we have a cloud that the rabbis tell us, Kol nevuah shenichteva utzrecha ledorot. What that means is as follows. The rabbis tell us the Jewish nation has thousands of prophets. Thousands of prophets, and how come we only have a few that are documented? What happened to the rest of them? The rabbis tell us, Kol nevuah shehutzrecha le'atid nichteva. All those prophecies that were necessary for the future generations were documented, was written down. There were many prophecies, many individual prophecies for the people themselves, many prophecies for that generation only. What was written down? Only those prophecies that we need for future generations. So all that we have right now, if you look at the prophets, if you read them, you will find encouraging words for the future. This is what you should be expecting, and a lot of them speak about Mashiach, about the final redemption, final Geulah. Very important books to read. Unfortunately, the yeshivot and the schools, they don't emphasize enough study of it. It's part of our history. What they said back then and what they said for the future generation. And if you read it and understand what they're saying, you would have a better understanding of what's happening today too. Because we are living in the time of what they spoke about. The only thing that's missing is that the lion should sit down next to a cow. They should both eat hay. That prophecy. There will be no more warfare. That we still have a little bit more to go. We still have war. We still have problems. But we're almost there. One prophecy says incredibly. There will come a time, the prophet says, Yishvu Zkenim Yerushalayim. Children will be playing in the streets of Yerushalayim. There will come a time when the city of Jerusalem will be rebuilt, and you will see elderly men sitting and children frolicking, playing in the streets. 150 years ago, you couldn't have said that. If you would have read that verse, you would have said, what? City being rebuilt, the elderly, the kids playing around. Where? Today, just go in any neighborhood in Yerushalayim, and you will see this prophecy. So a lot of the prophecies that were written many, many years ago, we are living during this time that we're seeing them fulfilled. Just another few details, since I don't think he discusses it, so I want to mention that. The Rambam says prophets are very powerful, right? They see the future. But so do astrologers, and so do crystal gazers, right? And so do psychics. What's the difference between all of them? And it makes a very important point. All of these people, even though it's true that they may be able to see the future, there are various kohot, various ways that Hashem put into nature that one is able to see and to know, but they're not 100% accurate. They can be wrong. Not only can they be wrong, Hashem could change the mazal in the past. A person may, according to his mazal, live only to a certain age, but because he did teshuvah, Hashem gives him an extension, a lease of life. Is that what they call it in English? Additional lease of life. 15 years. As the Gemara says, Binyamin HaTzadik, because he helped a widow and her 7 children, her 7 daughters, in a time of hunger, he fed them with his own money. He was a Gabbai Tzedakah. Once, during the hunger year, she approached him, begged for money, and he says, I'm sorry, I don't have any more money. The kupa reka, the kupa is empty. And she told him, listen, if you don't give us even a little bit, a widow and her 7 daughters are going to die from starvation. And he took from his own money, from his own house, shared with the widow. And the Baruch Hashem were able to survive. So, sometime later, when he was on his deathbed, the Malachim asked Hashem, he should die before his time, or he should die early. He who gave life to a widow and 7 daughters. Even if you save one person's life, that's a big thing. He saved so many lives. And they gave him an extension, 22 years. So I once asked, why 22? Anybody figure out why? What's so special about the number? So I figured like this. If you look at the prophets, there are several incidents, the Gemara and prophets, where a lease of life, an additional lease of life, Arichut Yamin, is 15 years. Hashem gave Hiskiyahu HaMelech an additional 15 years to live after he did the Shuvah, after he prayed to Hashem. So Binyamin got 15 years plus an additional 7 for every one of the girls that he saved. That's just my interpretation. This is another plus an additional 7. Maybe. Anyway, how do we get into that? Yeah, we were talking about astrologers. So astrologers don't see clearly. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can change the mazal of a person and give him more years to live. A prophet, what he sees, is for sure comes true. The only exception is if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, says, you know what, these people are doing the Shuvah, I'm not going to bring about the time that I promised them. Because a prophet would see good things and bad things. How would we test a prophet? I'm not sure if he gets into that later, that's why I'm mentioning it now. How do we know if somebody's a real prophet? Not by magic tricks. That could come from witchcraft. A prophet has to prove himself by predicting the future, and if what he predicts comes true, he's a real prophet. If he does it several times, you can trust him and know just about anything. But so can these other people. No, but these other people cannot clearly see the future. Even what they do see is not 100% accurate. They don't see clearly the way the prophet sees. However, even what a prophet says, Hashem can cancel the decree. As the rabbis tell us, any promise Hashem makes, which is a positive promise, usually Hashem never calls it back. If it's a positive thing, good thing that's going to happen, that usually is not cancelled. Bad things can be cancelled. That is what Yonah was concerned. Yonah, the story of Yonah the prophet. Hashem is sending me on a mission. Very unusual mission. You don't see that kind of a mission anywhere in the Torah, where a Jewish prophet goes to a non-Jewish land, non-Jewish city, to speak to Goyim. When do we have that? That was a special mission. They was a special city in some ways. And what was Yonah concerned about? That they're Goyim? No, that didn't bother him. What bothered him is that he knew that they're going to do teshuvah after they hear what he has to say. Oy va'avoy lachem. If you don't do teshuvah, this is what's going to happen soon to your city. And they did teshuvah. He was concerned about it because this would bring out an accusation against Am Yisrael. He loved his Jewish brothers. He says, if the Goyim do teshuvah, how's that going to look on the Jews? Goyim do teshuvah and Jews don't do teshuvah. So therefore he'd rather not go and give prophecy to the Goyim. So Hashem basically told him, you better go. And as a result of his mission, and as a result of his words of prophecy, as a result of his warning, they did teshuvah. So anyway, the Rambam explains that the difference between astrology and all these seers is that they can see some things, but they're not prophets. You cannot guarantee that something will happen. Nothing is written in stone. Whereas a prophet, because of his connection with Borei Olam, because he's much closer to... Alright, now that we understand what prophecy is, we have to understand what do we have today that we don't have prophecy. Because today we don't have prophecy, even though we have Ruach HaKodesh, we have small prophecies, things that resemble prophecy, and they're fascinating in their own right. What did we have during the Beit HaMikdash? During the first one, we had the prophets. During the second one, we didn't have prophets, except for the very, very beginning. What do we have? We had a period of time that we had something called Urim Tumim. On the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, in the breastplate there was the Shem of Hashem. You had a question, important question. You came to the Kohen Gadol, and the different stones would light up, and they had letters on them, the Shvatim, and you would get an answer to your question. That's not called Nevuah, it's not called Ruach HaKodesh, it's called Urim V'Tumim. But of course, this is a Koach Elyon, it's from above. You were able to clearly see that Hashem was giving you the answer through the stones, through the colors. They would light up. Something like the neon lights today. So they would have, you would have the answer to your question. That we lost too. We don't have the Urim V'Tumim today. What came after that? Something called the Bat Kol, the heavenly voice above. At times, people heard the heavenly voices. You would be in your house, and all of a sudden you would hear, Moshe, Moshe. Yeah, who's talking to me? And it would be a heavenly voice. Yeah, something. I don't know how it would work, but it would be something that you would hear clearly. That would be a bat call, giving you direction or giving you an answer to your question. That we don't have today. Not so much, at least. Unless there's some people who claim that God is talking to them. They're in Skid Row right now. You know what Skid Row is, right? That the people in Skid Row got talking to them. That's what they have. Today we don't have that. What do we have? And we said there's something called Gilui Eliyahu. That was always the case. After Eliyahu Navi passed away, people were affected to Gilui Eliyahu. Then there's something called Shelat Halom. Let's say you have a question. It's such a difficult question that you don't know who to ask. Because you don't believe there's anybody in the world that can give you a good answer to this question. Even though I said before, we do have tzaddikim. And they are the ones who we should turn to when we have difficult questions to deal with. But there's something called Shelat Halom. There was a rabbi, I think he lived about 900 years ago, who wrote a whole book, and the name of the book is Shelot U'Tshuvot Min HaShamayim. He wrote down a question on a piece of paper, put it underneath his pillow, slept, went to sleep, and when he woke up in the morning, he had an answer. Written. Others who did the same thing didn't have a written response. They had the response in a dream. Others would get the response in some other way. He had a response that in Moshe was written, and he wrote a very interesting book. And you could see from the questions, they were not just simple questions, they were important questions, but the answers is what's unique here. The answers were using Pesukim. They didn't give him a clear answer in plain English or plain French or plain German, whatever the language was. They gave him answers using Pesukim, and you had to look at the Pesuk and a little bit to figure it out, but it was evident from the Pesuk what the answer was. So that's called Shelot Min HaShamayim, or Shelat Halom. That is still possible today. One can still do a Shelat Halom if he knows how to do it, if he's on the level to do it, and if it's an important question. Most people do not occupy themselves with this only because that either they're not on the level or they don't know how to do it. But it is possible, it is feasible, even today, to ask the Sheila Min HaShamayim, and they will tell you. I'll even tell you another secret. It's possible, if somebody's single, it's possible for him to do something. I'm not going to tell you right now how or what, but it's once a month that you can do something where you can see a picture of your soulmate when you look at it. A picture. There's all sorts of little things that people are unaware of that show a connection with Borei Olam, of course, through all these segulot, or through all these halamot, that one is able to determine to a certain thing. Next, even though there's all these methods of finding out information, the rabbis tell us, you know what? Even though we don't have Nevuah today, don't think Nevuah completely disappeared. HaNevuah hayom nitna leshotim u'lektanim. Nevuah does exist, but it was given to little children and to those who are not, how would we say, not intelligent people. You might find that sometimes a child, out of nowhere, a 5, 6, 7-year-old child, all of a sudden, yells out of nowhere. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's just enjoying their lunch. Why did you decide to sing this song all of a sudden? I don't know. I just felt like it. But that was a nevuah ktana, and it happened to me in Eretz Yisrael. I was in the home of a relative of mine, and my uncle's father, alav shalom. We both heard this boy all of a sudden saying Siman Tov U'Mazal Tov, and we both thought of the same thing. We thought of that Gemara that says, Hayom nevuat nitna lektanim. And we said, Bezat Hashem, what that means is that this man's daughter, who was already over 30, 32, 35, she was older, and everybody was concerned about it. We said, well, Baruch Hashem, nevuah ktana, she's getting married to. Within a couple of weeks, she was engaged. She was already an older girl, but we both thought of the same thing, because Out of nowhere, he starts singing Siman Tov Mazal Tov. Where is that coming from? Kadosh Baruch Hu threw a little nevuah for some reason at that moment. So nevuah, yesh nevuah ktanot, small prophecies, and they're given to children. So sometimes the child says something, pay attention. Maybe it's a nevuah ktanot. Another medium for nevuah is shotim. Those who don't have intelligence, who are limited in their intelligence, and Kadosh Baruch Hu uses them too as a vehicle to transmit nevuah. So through them, as you may have heard through autistic children today, they are discovering that they are able to relate all sorts of bits of information. So Hashem does use certain individuals to give over messages. During the time of the Gemara, the rabbis who were on a very high level used another method called Sokli Psukecha. Children used to learn Chumash very, very well, and they understood what they were reading. They knew very well what they learned. And rabbis, used to come home from the Bet Midrash, and they used to meet with children in the middle of the way. Each one was going home. This one from school, this one from the Bet Midrash. And the rabbi had a major issue on his mind. So he would approach a child, which pasuk did you learn? What was the last pasuk you learned today in class? And then the child would say, Tanim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha. Thank you very much. That's the answer that I needed to hear. Give you an example, right? Because he had some questions, some doubt. The pasuk that the child would give him was to him a siman min hashamayim, or a remez, or a response to whatever question or whatever doubt he had. Next, we were speaking about the various methods that we have today, other than nevuah. There's something called goralot. Anybody here know what a goral is? Don't you know the story of Purim? Even Haman made a little bit of some sort of goral, what? Like a lottery. A lottery is not just plain luck. It's min hashamayim. If you see somebody who always wins the bingo games, he's the one that gets chosen, or his name comes up, or he wins in the lottery out there. You play Monopoly with him and he wins the game, not once or twice, but many times. He has good mazal. It's not pure luck, and it's not intelligence. The mazal is with him, so the mazal is drawn to him. That's all it is. Okay? Goralot is a very mystical form of, or if you call it a system that exists. There is Goralot from the Kedusha, there's those that come from the Tumah, like tarot cards, which you may have heard of. But from the Kedusha, there are Goralot that rabbis use to be able to figure out something. Give you an example. There is a famous one called the Goral Hagra, the Goral of the Gaon of Vilna. And he basically gives instructions on how to do it, which books of the Torah to use. And if you open up the book and you flip a certain amount of pages, you will have an answer to your question. Okay, so you may have heard of Rabbi Elyahu Kin. In Israel there was an incident where the area of Gush Etzion, a number of Israelis got killed by the Arabs, and they were buried in shallow graves real quickly because nobody can get to them and retrieve their bodies. After things quieted down, they went and retrieved the bodies, but it was difficult to identify them already. So Rabbi Elyahu Kin got involved. They brought them to his home, upstairs. He fasted on that day, I believe. There was candles, they said to leave. And he used the Goral Hagra. Who is this body right here? They used the Goral Hagra. Some pasuk came out with the name Naphtali. Oh! Naphtali, this is Naphtali so-and-so. There was only one Naphtali. Every time they did the Goral, some pasuk came out with either the actual name, or if it was a name that does not exist in the Torah, there were words in that pasuk gave a clear indication that this is a man. And they did it for every single one, and that is how they were able to identify who this man was, using Goralot. There's various types of Goralot. Some Goralot, all they involve is opening up the Elim. Just like that. What pasuk comes up, that's the answer. Various types of Goralot. What they all have in common is that the person has to be on a high level. He has to have some preparation. It has to be a valid question. And it has to be a certain days of the month and a certain hours of the day. You can't just do it at all times. So people who would follow these guidelines would be able to do Goralot too. However, one has to be careful. It's brought down in the halakha that we don't try to do Goralot to figure out the future. Unless you have a major question. What's a major question? An example of a major question is the question of Aaron Kotler. Aaron Kotler just came out of Europe. Where should he go? On the one hand, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, his good friend and buddies in America. On the other hand, he wants to go to Eretz Israel. Very difficult question to decide. America or Israel? What do you do? He had no one to ask eternity, and it was very difficult to decide because there was pros and cons in both areas. He made the Goral, Agra. And in the Goral Agra, the pasuk that came out to responding to his question was the pasuk that Hashem tells Aaron, Lech ikat Moshe, Lech efer Moshe hamidbara. Go towards your brother Moshe in the desert. He's Aaron, Moshe Feinstein, and the Midbar is America. It's the desert back there. It was a clear-cut answer, no doubts whatsoever that that's where he needed to go. And as a result of him coming to America, the yeshiva of Lakewood and all the yeshivot sprang out as a result of his efforts, the efforts of Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. These two giants, together with the Rebbe of Lubavitch too, and other rabbis in America, is what did it to revive the Torah in this desert, spiritual wasteland. So this happened through a Goral. So Goralot have been used and are always used, but for specific questions, difficult questions, and of course only at certain times. Okay, I just want to finish up another important point there, that Rambam brings down. He may speak about it in the book later on, and maybe we'll get into it next week, but just in case he doesn't, I'll mention it now. Prophecy, Ruach HaKodesh, and all these things are very powerful. If that's the case, what happens if somebody comes to you and proves to you he's a prophet, and as a result of him proving to you that he's a prophet, or he knows, or he has Ruach HaKodesh, he's able to tell your nation inside out. He's able to tell you how many children you have, when were you sick, at the age of 13, this happened to you. That's very impressive, isn't it? That most people can't do that. You might be misled into trusting him or believing in him, and as a result of that, Chas v'Shalom, becoming distant from the Torah, distant from Hashem. This is not a good man. The Torah, of course, warns us that there's something called an Navi Sheker. False prophets. In other words, there are individuals out there who have kochot, as we said last week, I believe, when we talked about the koch Yishuv Tum'ah. There are powers out there. And Moshe Rabbeinu, even though he had powers, Am Yisrael did not believe him because of his powers. It was not his powers. It was prophecies came true. All that he said that will happen, happened. But more than that, we heard from Hashem directly. Somebody once asked me, why don't you believe Christianity, the New Testament, and all of that? After all, the one who said all of that was a great man. He was Jewish, right? And he did all these miracles just like Moses did. So why you believe in Moses? Why don't you believe in him? So I told him like this. Of course, I can get into a long argument that the New Testament is completely false. There's a lot of contradictions, but there's no time for that. I said it's very simple. Hashem gave us over the Torah in Har Sinai, and he spoke to us directly, and he told us what to do. In order for me to Chas v'Shalom not do all of that, I would have to have that exact same thing repeat itself, where Hashem himself would tell me, I have a New Testament for you. He never did, and he never will tell us that because the Torah is for the eternals forever. He spoke to us only once, and that was enough. You are trying to use a human being to replace Hashem's message? As soon as I said that, he kept quiet. He had no answer. What should he say? And I think I explained that in another shiur. The first two tzivuim, we heard it from Hashem himself. The rest of it was from Moshe Rabbeinu, dictated by Hashem too. The first two, Anochi lo yeh lecha, was from Hashem himself. Why? Because in case a prophet ever comes and tells you to go against the Torah, no way. If a prophet who's a Nevi Emet, who has proven himself, says, for some reason today you need to eat non-kosher, just today, I'm not canceling a mitzvah, I'm not permitting an averah forever, but hora'at sha'ah, I have a momentary commandment from Hashem, that these are the instructions, that for now, you can do this, that you were not allowed to do it, we have to listen to him. If he's a Navi Emet, and he has a chazakah, he has proven himself in the past. We don't suspect that he's lying. The exception is, if he tries to lead us to Avodah Zarah, if he tries to take us away from the Torah, to completely deny the existence of Hashem, that we can't do, that we don't believe, because that we heard from Hashem himself. So Hashem wanted us to hear the first two commandments from him directly, so nobody should ever think of misleading us. And the Torah, in various places, warns us there will come a time, and there will be times in history when there will be false prophets that will try to mislead you. Be careful. What did Hashem say in the Torah? Do not add, do not detract from what I wrote, from what I asked of you. This is the Torah, this is the way it's supposed to be. But unfortunately, there has been many times where Jews have attempted to change the Torah, to add, to remove, whether it's through the Reform movement or the Conservative movement, And Hashem knew that this was going to happen. So he warned us, be careful with these false prophets. No matter what they say, they cannot change it. The Torah was not intended to be changed whatsoever. Not one letter can be changed. That is why if one letter is missing, the Torah is psula. So we have to be very, very careful with this tradition. So Hashem is concerned with false prophets. Hashem is concerned with all these kochot hatumah that exist out there, because not only are they tameh, not only does this lead to avodah zarah, there's always the danger of a Jew being misled. Oh, this is great, this is fascinating, and he falls into the trap of losing it, and that is how people were moved away. We drove many people were moved away because they were fascinated, they were impressed. This guy can walk on water. Yeah, but is it from the dusha or from the tumah? Don't be impressed. Just find out how is he able to do it. If he's able to do it in the tumah, I'm not impressed. If this is from the dusha, okay, this might be a tzaddik, this might be a special person. So there are people out there who will be able to see the future, who will be able to know all sorts of things. There was a story of even with the Gaon of Vilna. A man, a Jew, a religious Jew, approached them and told the Gaon of Vilna all sorts of incredible things about him that nobody else knew. He even told him which neshamot came to see him the night before. How did he know that? People were amazed. The Gaon of Vilna says, I'm not amazed. The yeda, that chokhmah that he had, did not come as a nevuah. There are kochot in nature. There are certain kochot in nature that one who is able to concentrate, especially if he has those psychic abilities in his nature. And some people are endowed with certain psychic abilities. They're able to see and know certain things. Now, what I'm not telling you is that tomorrow you should go to these psychics. There's every other corner. There's for $5, consultation, tarot cards, psychics, astrologers, palmists. Many of them are gypsies. They just want your money. But some of them do know certain things. But even what they know is not 100%. And even if it's 100%, you're still not allowed to go. Still not allowed to go, because either it's avodah zarah or you could be misled in believing in it and falling in that trap. So Hashem warns us, stay away from this. There will even be false prophets, and we had many such false prophets who misled the Jews into believing in avodah zarah. What will be the end of all these people? Anybody who gives false prophecy, in the end, the Torah says, don't worry, in the end, he will not live long. He will fail miserably. And unfortunately, as you may have read, that we had false messiahs too, who either thought innocently, or who, for whatever reason, had a cheshbon of convincing people they were the Mashiach. In the end, you know what happened. They didn't succeed. They failed miserably, and many of them were killed. Mashiach, who's going to be the Hashem prophet too, has a mission to accomplish. And we have a list waiting for him. If he fulfills that list, we will know it's him. Before he fulfills that list, we don't know. Many people have claimed. You say you are? You've got to do this. You've got to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. You've got to bring all the Jews back together. You've got to stop all war. This has never happened. That is why the Christians are saying all along, well, there's going to be a second coming. He didn't finish the first time. So he has to come back a second time. There's no second coming. There's only one chance to do it. Either you do it, or you don't do it. The real Mashiach, nobody will have any doubts that it's him. Not only will he be a prophet, will he be able to see everything and know everything, he will also accomplish everything that is expected of him. Even though we have a tradition of something called Mashiach ben Yosef, we're looking forward to Mashiach ben David because he will restore Malchut ben David. He's the one that's going to be Mekadesh in Israel, and it's during his time that there will be also Tfiyat HaMetim. All of this will happen in stages, but it will become evident. In the very, very beginning, Mashiach himself will not even know that it's him. He himself will not know it's him. Until Hashem tells him. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu. Who am I? You want me to do it? I can't even talk straight. I mumble. Hashem says, no, you're the man. Same thing with Mashiach, with Navi. He will not know in the beginning it's him. But in the end, the whole world will realize that Mashiach has come.